Hey guys, if you've been following me for some time, you've probably seen this PC case in my previous videos. That's the Corsair 380T, a mini ITX case that has a lot to offer, and I think it looks super dope. However, I wanted to try something smaller to get a bit more space on my desk. And that's why I bagged the Dancase A4 V2 on Kickstarter in May 2017. Fast forward to about 10 months later and I finally received the case. So without waiting any further, let's check it out. It came in two boxes, one for shipping and the other one for the case itself. My little fluffy monster had a lot of fun with these. A new box is basically a new home for him. And it looks gorgeous. I mean, the case, not the cat. It's manufactured by Lee, so you can expect thick aluminum panels and an overall excellent quality. Well, fortunately, as this case costed me an arm and leg, including the import fees. So today we'll take all of the PC parts out of my previous case and we'll build in my new Dan A4 case. Also, I plan on upgrading most of my build in the next month, so don't forget to subscribe if you still haven't already to make sure you don't miss that build update. So first, I removed all the parts that were in my Corsair case. I only left my power supply in as this one won't fit in the Dan A4 anyway. So I removed my graphics card, my motherboard and my SSD. Now here's an overview of all the parts we'll install. These are not all last gen, but they still do the job fine in most scenarios. So there's my EVGA GTX 1070 for the win, and it's a pretty decent card. I only game at 4K, so I have to lower some of the settings most of the time, but as far as performance goes, it's still a pretty powerful card nowadays, although I've had it for almost 2 years. My SSD is the BX100 by Crucial and it has a capacity of 500 GB. It's a pretty standard SSD with great read and write speeds for a SATA drive, but I plan on changing it for an M.2 drive soon. Then there's my power supply, which is brand new. It's the SF600 by Corsair, a 600 watt 80 plus gold PSU. And it had everything I needed while keeping a small form factor. Again, that's new boxes for the cat. I think this little guy is really excited for my next build. And that doesn't look really comfortable. So overall, a great PSU and 600 watt is plenty good if I ever want to upgrade my graphics card. I also use a pretty old CPU that's an i7-4790K on a Z97 motherboard. It still does the job, especially at 4K where my GPU is the bottleneck. And I don't need to overclock it, so this CryoRig C7 cooler is good enough to keep it at lower temperatures. And I've got 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM. Yep, that's pretty old. So to install everything in there, I removed the two side panels, starting with the screws that are keeping them in place. Then I removed the piece that forms the top and front panels. I then removed the PSU bracket and installed it on my SF600. Then I installed my Mobo's IO shield and I could install my motherboard and secure it with the 4 corner screws. Then I plugged in the PCI extension in my PCI slot. I could then install my PSU in place, and here's how it looked just after that. I installed the power extension, trying to manage it as best as I could. Then I removed the screws that held the PCI bracket so that I could install my graphics card in there. And it looks awesome. I finally installed my SSD at the front and passed the AC cord there as well. After that, I installed all the cables I needed, including the 24-pin cable for my motherboard, then I needed a 4-pin cable for my CPU, SATA power for my SSD, and two 8-pin power cables for my graphics card. I ran a little test to see if it was turning on, and it did, so now I try to manage the cables. The cables that came with the SF600 are pretty stiff, so it's a bit hard to work with them. Someday I would like to get custom cables that are just the right length, as it would look cleaner and it would improve the airflow as well. Also, going with an M.2 SSD will remove the SATA power cable, and going with a GPU that requires a single 8-pin power cable would be beneficial as well. Still, I was able to reinstall both side panels without too much force. It creates slight bumps in the case at some places, but overall it fits well. So here's the final result. And I'm really happy with all the space I got back from switching to this smaller than A4 case. And I love how stealthy it looks. However, I'm a bit worried about dust as there are no dust filters in there and the case has a lot of open areas. So I guess I'll have to clean it up once in a while to keep it looking like new. Now, I've not gamed on it yet, so I can't really tell how it handles heat dissipation, but at idle, it's a little warmer than it used to be in my Corsair case. I will add a 92mm fan at the bottom someday, so this should help with heat. The biggest downside of this case is the price. I think you can now get it for a bit cheaper than what I paid, but it's still quite expensive for how small it is. But in the end, if building the smallest PC possible is your goal, then I think it's worth it. So hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you like the video if you did, and if you didn't, just let me know down below what I should change. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe if you still haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.